Okay, welcome everyone to this deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're tackling, well, a really significant subject in India's defense landscape, the LCA Tejas aircraft.
Absolutely. A lot to talk about.
And you've given us a fantastic stack of sources to work with here. We've got material that seems to give us a look right inside HAL's own LCA Tejas division,
Yeah, some insights from the manufacturing side itself.
alongside other analyses covering the jet's journey, its capabilities, and its future prospects.
It's a genuinely comprehensive collection, you know. We can see the program's history, decades of it, right down to the nuts and bolts of how they're building them today.
Exactly. So our mission is clear. We're going to unpack these sources, dig into the core information, and give you a clear, insightful picture of the Tejas.
What it is, the huge effort behind it, and where it seems to be headed.
Think of this as your shortcut, really, to understanding one of India's biggest indigenous defense projects.
Precisely. We'll pull out the key details and explain what they mean, all based directly on the material you've provided.
Okay, let's jump right in. Back to basics first. What is the Tejas, fundamentally?
Right. So the sources all describe it pretty consistently. It's India's indigenous supersonic multirole fighter aircraft, a light combat aircraft, or LCA.
Designed for various roles, yeah.
Exactly. Air-to-air, air-to-ground, that sort of thing.
And this wasn't something dreamed up overnight. The program has pretty deep roots, doesn't it?
Oh, very deep. The sources trace its official start back to 1984.
Wow, 84.
Yeah, that's when the government of India formally kicked off the LCA program. And, you know, for something this complex, they set up a dedicated agency to manage it all.
Ah, the Aeronautical Development Agency, ADA.
That's the one, ADA. Sort of the guiding brain behind the project.
Okay, so if ADA was the brain, who was actually, designing and building the thing, the muscle?
Well, that role falls primarily to Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, HAL. They're noted in the sources as the principal partner.
HAL.
And the driving purpose, according to the sources, was really twofold. First, critically, replace the Indian Air Force's huge fleet of aging MiG-21s.
Which had been around forever, practically.
Exactly. They're definitely showing their age. But just as importantly, it was about boosting India's own aerospace design and manufacturing capabilities, a strategic goal.
So building that know-how domestically, not just buying planes from other countries, makes sense.
Right. And the name Tejas, that came a bit later.
Yeah, the sources mentioned it was formally named Tejas, meaning radiance or brilliance, back in 2003 by the Prime Minister at the time.
And one source adds a nice bit of context. This is actually HAL's second shot at a supersonic jet.
Oh, interesting. After what?
After the earlier HF-24 Marut program, way back in the 60s and 70s.
Right, the Marut. Okay, fascinating history there. Let's shift gears now from the origins to, well, the actual making of the aircraft today.
Okay.
Your sources include material that seems to come, directly from HAL's LCA Tejas division.
Yes, that source is quite revealing. It paints a picture of the LCA Tejas division in Bangalore as the main hub for manufacturing the aircraft.
Tell us a bit about this specific division. How did it come about?
Well, it started its journey back in July 2002. Initially, it was called the LCA Production Group, or LCAPG,
Okay.
operating under the wider HAL Bangalore complex. Its job then was sort of handling development and production side by side.
Concurrent engineering, maybe?
Something like that. Then, as the program matured and scaled up, they upgraded it. In April 2014, it became a full-fledged production division, the LCA Tejas division we're talking about now.
And what kind of place is it? What do the sources say about its facilities and capabilities?
The material really emphasizes state-of-the-art stuff, modern manufacturing infrastructure, advanced CNC machines, computer numerical control, essential for that precision work in aerospace. They use CAD/CAM systems for the manufacturing engineering side.
Taking the design and telling the machines what to do?
Exactly. Robust quality assurance systems are mentioned, IT support, and crucially, a highly skilled workforce. HAL's role is described as the lead integrator.
Pulling it all together.
Yeah, coordinating everything, working with a network of business partners, and managing the whole supply chain. It's a big operation.
Sounds complex. The sources also list a whole bunch of certifications this division has earned. ADAS 9100D, DGAQA, various ISO numbers. What's the deal with those? Are they important?
Oh, absolutely crucial. These aren't just, certificates for the wall. They indicate really high standards, especially in aerospace and defense.
Okay, break down. ADAS 9100D.
That's a global standard specifically for quality management in aviation, space, and defense. Having that says they meet tough international quality benchmarks for making aircraft.
Right, and DGAQA.
That's approval from India's own Directorate General of Aeronautical Quality Assurance, so meeting the domestic quality standards too.
Okay, and the ISO ones? 4001, 45001, 2700.
Those cover other vital areas. ISO 14000 is for environmental management, ISO 45001 is for occupational health and safety, and ISO 2701 deals with information security management.
So it's a whole suite showing commitment across the board: quality, environment, safety, data protection.
Exactly. And think about exports. These kinds of certifications are often non-negotiable for international customers. They build trust.
That's a great point. It really underlines their operational standards. Okay, so they've got the facility, the certified processes. Let's talk output. What orders are they actually working on right now?
According to the sources, the division holds confirmed orders for a total of 123 aircraft.
123, that's a pretty solid number. How did they get to that figure? Was it all at once?
No, it built up over time. It started with earlier commitments. The first production order mentioned is for 20 aircraft in the IOC configuration.
IOC, initial operational clearance.
That's it. Think of it as the first version cleared for some military use. That order was back in March 2006.
Okay, 20 IOC.
Then a second order came in December 2010 for another 20 aircraft, but this time in the FOC configuration.
Final operational clearance, so fully combat ready.
Right, cleared for the full range of combat roles.
So that's 40 aircraft. The remaining chunk must be from a more recent deal.
Exactly, the big one. That came in 2021, an order for 83 LCA Mk1A aircraft, specifically for the Indian Air Force.
Mk1A. We'll need to dig into what makes that variant special later.
Definitely. And the sources highlight the value of that deal around Rs 48,000 crore. It breaks down into 73 fighter jets and 10 of the two-seat trainer versions.
Okay, so let's recap. 20 IOC plus 20 FOC plus 83 Mk1A.
Yeah, that adds up to 123 total ordered.
Correct.
Now, how many of those had actually been built and delivered by the time these sources were compiled? There's a figure mentioned, isn't there?
Yes, one source notes that as of March 2019, India had 32 Tejas aircraft built.
32 by March 2019. Okay, so out of 123 ordered, that leaves, well, over 90 still to be delivered after that date. That's a huge production ramp-up needed. It is, and the sources directly address this challenge. They state the division's current manufacturing capacity is around 8 to 10 aircraft per year.
8 to 10 a year. That won't hit the target quickly.
Right. So the sources say this capacity is actively being augmented. The goal is to get up to 16 aircraft per year.
Double the rate. How?
A key part of that is building a whole new facility, a new plant too. It was specifically set up during 2021 to boost the LCA production capacity.
Wow. A dedicated new plant just for Tejas. That shows serious commitment to meeting that 123 order.
It certainly suggests that.
And is there a target deadline mentioned for delivering all 123?
Yes, the sources state HAL plans to deliver all 123 aircraft to the Air Force by the financial year 2024-25.
2024-25. Okay, so hitting that 16 aircraft per year rate quickly is obviously pretty critical for that timeline.
Absolutely.
All right, we've looked at the scale of manufacturing. Let's zoom in on the aircraft itself. What are its key characteristics? What does it do?
The sources describe Tejas as a 4.5 generation all-weather multirole light combat aircraft.
4.5 gen. So pretty modern tech.
Yeah, incorporating features beyond typical fourth-gen fighters. It's designed for various missions: air combat, ground attack, offensive air support.
What makes it stand out, according to the sources? Any unique features?
Several things are highlighted. It's noted as being the smallest and lightest aircraft in its class.
Smallest and lightest. Why is that?
Partly its dimensions, but also significant use of composite materials in its structure. Composites are strong but lighter than traditional metals.
And being light and small, what's the advantage for a fighter?
Well, smaller size can mean a lower radar signature, potentially harder to detect. Lighter weight usually helps with agility and potentially lower running costs too. Less fuel burn, maybe.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Anything else?
The sources also make a point of its excellent flight safety record. They specifically mention an accident-free flying history, which is obviously very important.
Absolutely. What about its actual design shape?
It uses what's called a compound tailless delta design.
Okay, what does that look like?
Big delta wings, no separate horizontal tail at the back, but it does have small canards or strakes near the front. The sources say this design helps increase its capacity to carry a wider range of weapons.
More weapons flexibility.
Good.
And getting fuel in the air.
Yep. It's got an in-flight refueling, or IFR, probe, allows it to top up from a tanker mid-air.
Extending its range and time on station.
Exactly. And the sources note this IFR capability has been proven day and night.
Okay, let's talk avionics, the brains inside.
Right. It uses an open architecture mission computer. This is described as indigenously designed.
Open architecture. That means it's easier to upgrade later.
That's the idea. Easier to integrate new hardware or software from different suppliers, which is great for long-term updates and keeping it modern. For flying the plane, it has a quadruple-redundant fly-by-wire system.
Fly-by-wire. Pilot inputs go through computers.
Yes, a digital system. Offers sophisticated control stability aids. And quadruplex redundant means there are 4 independent channels for safety. If one fails, the others take over instantly. Very reliable.
Sounds advanced. What about the radar? That's crucial for a fighter.
It's equipped with an AESA radar, Active Electronically Scanned Array.
AESA. That's top-tier stuff, isn't it?
It is. Unlike older radars that physically move a dish, AESA steers the beam electronically. It's much faster, more agile, can track multiple targets, do different tasks at once. The sources also mention it has a low probability of interception, harder for enemies to know they're being scanned.
AESA is definitely a big capability boost. And weapons. What can it carry?
The sources say it has 9 hardpoints, places to attach weapons or fuel tanks.
9. That's quite a few for a light fighter.
It is, and it can fire a variety of weapons. Long-range BVR missiles.
Beyond visual range. For targets far away.
Right, and WVR missiles within visual range for dogfighting. Plus, it can deploy bombs with precision guidance.
Versatile. The sources also list some basic specs, right? Size, speed.
Yep, the key numbers are there.
Yeah.
Length, 13.2 meters. Wingspan, 8.2 meters. Height, 4.4 meters. Max takeoff mass, 13,500 kilograms.
And the engine.
It uses a GE F404 IN-20 engine, putting out 85 kilonewtons of thrust. Performance-wise, G limits are plus 8G Neckel for 3.5G.
Meaning it can pull some tight turns?
Very tight, yeah. Crucial for agility. Max speed is Mach 1.6 times the speed of sound. So comfortably supersonic. And its service ceiling, how high it can fly, is 50,000 feet.
Okay, those numbers give a solid feel for the aircraft. Now, we mentioned the Mk1A is the latest version ordered, but the sources talk about other variants too, planned ones.
They do. Beyond the Mk1A fighter, there's the Tejas trainer, a 2-seater for pilot training.
Makes sense, and a naval version.
Yes, an LCA Navy variant, planned as carrier-capable twin and single-seaters for the Indian Navy.
Right, and this is where the sources bring in a really important clarification about the naval version, isn't it?
Absolutely critical nuance here. While a naval Tejas prototype did successfully land on the aircraft carrier INS Vikramaditya,
which was a huge deal, technically, put India in a very small club.
Definitely a milestone. But the sources also explicitly state that the Navy has declared the Tejas Mk1 version is too heavy for full operational use from their current carriers, like INS Vikrant or Vikramaditya.
Oh, okay. So the landing proved the concept was possible, but the current Mk1 aircraft itself isn't considered suitable by the Navy for regular carrier ops because of its weight. That's a key distinction highlighted in the sources.
It is. And that leads directly into the other future variants mentioned. There's the LCA Tejas AF Mk2.
AF for Air Force.
Correct. Planned as an improved version for the Air Force, notably with a more powerful engine for better performance. And then there's the LCA Tejas Navy Mk2.
The follow-on naval version.
Described as Phase 2 of the Navy variant. Presumably, this is the version intended to actually meet the Navy's weight and performance needs for carrier operations that the Mk1 couldn't.
That connects the dots. The Mk2 variants seem aimed at addressing Mk1 limitations and enhancing the platform. Now, speaking of improvements, let's go back to that Mk1A variant, the one the Air Force ordered 83 of. What specifically makes it better than the earlier IOC FOC versions?
The sources really position the Mk1A as the advanced version currently being produced. The upgrades listed are pretty significant.
Such as?
It gets that AESA radar we talked about. That's a major upgrade. It also includes a comprehensive electronic warfare, or EW suite.
EW suite, what does that do?
Things like radar warning receivers, alerting the pilot if they're being targeted by enemy radar, and self-protection jammers to try and disrupt incoming radar-guided missiles. Essential for survival in modern combat.
Definitely. What else in the Mk1A?
It features a digital map generator for better navigation, updated smart multifunction displays in the cockpit.
Making it easier for the pilot to manage information.
Exactly. Also, a combined interrogator and transponder helps identify friendly aircraft and an advanced radio altimeter. Crucially, the sources emphasize its flexibility for integrating various beyond visual range missiles that the Indian Air Force already has.
So more missile options for long-range fights.
Right, giving it more teeth.
So the Mk1A really isn't just a minor tweak. It sounds like it bundles in a lot of the key modern sensor and self-protection capabilities.
Precisely. It represents a definite step up in combat potential compared to those initial IOC and FOC aircraft.
Okay, we've covered the domestic situation, the tech details. What about the world stage? The sources suggest there's international interest in Tejas.
Yes, they do. The material mentions that HAL's LCA Tejas division is actively pursuing export opportunities. They're apparently progressing cases with several friendly foreign countries.
Are any specific countries named? Who's looking at it?
Yes, the sources list quite a few. Singapore, Egypt, Sri Lanka, the UAE, Turkmenistan, and Malaysia are all mentioned as having expressed interest.
That's a diverse list. Why, according to the sources, are these countries interested? What's the appeal?
The sources point to its positioning as a relatively low-cost aircraft with a comparatively simple design.
Cheaper to buy and maybe easier to maintain.
That seems to be the angle. This makes it potentially attractive to nations that need modern fighter capabilities, but might be working with tighter budgets, maybe prepared to buying heavier, more complex Western jets, especially in markets like Asia.
And the Mk1A improvements probably help its case too.
You'd think so, yeah, offering more capability for the cost, more bang for the buck, essentially.
Makes sense. Low acquisition cost, potentially lower running cost, plus increasingly modern tech in the Mk1A.
Yeah, I could see that could be a compelling package for some countries.
That appears to be the picture presented in the sources.
Finally, the sources offer just a brief comparison with other aircraft. What points do they make?
Okay, based strictly on what's in the provided material, the comparisons are quite specific. First, it says the Tejas outperforms the MiG-21 in every technical parameter listed. Well, that makes sense, given replacing the MiG-21 was the whole point.
Exactly. It had to be better.
And what about compared to something, say, more contemporary like the Rafale?
The sources draw a distinction based on class. They note Tejas is a light combat aircraft, while Rafale is a medium multi-role combat aircraft.
Different weight categories, different roles.
Right. They state the Rafale has better range and can carry heavier weapon loads, but they explicitly add that the Tejas is cheaper to operate.
So it's not saying one is better overall, just highlighting differences in capability, size, and cost based on their design.
Exactly that. It's presented as a factual comparison on specific points mentioned in the material range, payload, operational cost reflecting their different niches, Tejas as a capable, cost-effective light fighter.
Got it. Presenting the characteristics without making a judgment call.
Yes, just reporting the points made in the sources.
Okay, wow. We have covered a huge amount of ground there, really digging into the sources you shared.
We really have. We've traced it from the 1984 origins, looked at HAL's dedicated manufacturing division.
Right, the history of that division, its certifications.
The significant domestic orders, 123 aircraft, including that crucial Mk1A variant, and the big push to ramp up production with the new plant to meet that 2024-25 target.
And we unpack the aircraft itself, light, 4.5 gen, AC radar, EW suite, the tailless Delta design.
Yep. And the weapons it carries. We also touched on that important nuance with the naval version, the landing achievement versus the Navy's view on the Mk1's weight for carrier ops, as the sources present it.
And the plans for the Mk2 variants to presumably address that.
Plus, we saw the growing international interest driven by cost effectiveness and the Mk1A's capabilities, with quite a few countries apparently taking a look.
It's clear from all this material that the Tejas program has, well, a really long backstory, significant momentum right now in production and upgrades, and real potential globally. It's a massive indigenous effort.
It really is. The level of detail in the sources, from production line specifics and certifications to the avionics upgrades and those named export prospects, gives you a very comprehensive snapshot of where things stand.
So reflecting on everything we've discussed this long journey, the major domestic investment, the production push, the Mk1A's tech leap, the naval challenges noted, and this budding international interest. Here's a final thought for you, the listener, to consider.
Okay.
Given this big production ramp up and the growing attention from other countries, how might the success or indeed the challenges faced by the Tejas program in the next few years actually shape India's overall role and reputation in the global defense technology and export market?
That's a big question. It goes way beyond just this one aircraft, doesn't it?
It really does. Something to think about. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us into the LCA Tejas, all based on those incredibly detailed sources you shared.
It was fascinating to explore. A really complex and important project.
Absolutely. Until next time.